Thanks for joining us for the Changing the Industry podcast, where we try to effectuate change for the better, one conversation at a time. Part of that change is providing help for those that need it. This is why we've partnered with the Institute for Automotive Business Excellence. Whether it's help with sales, operations, or just getting your numbers in order, these folks are some of the very best in the industry. And for our listeners, they'll sit down with you and go over your strengths, your weaknesses, and the opportunities that are in front of you. They'll create a customized plan for how to move forward, absolutely free. That's right, free. And if your plan includes one-on-one coaching, they can also help you with that. There's no hard sales pitch, no obligation, just honest help from honest people. So if that's something that you think could benefit you, make sure you click on the link in the show notes. And now, on to the show.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Is that how we're going to start? You sneezing?
Yes, absolutely.
Is fuel quality?
Yeah, right. No, that's this guy. That's this guy. No, that was Cecil earlier. Poor Cecil. Got to hear his allergies all
It's
the
not the same thing.
Fellers, introduce yourselves.
Oh, I'm Gary Smith with Diagnostic.
Very cool.
And Adam Robertson, Diagnostic Duo right here. Woo-hoo. Yeah.
So what is Diagnostic?
Well, Diagnostic is a remote support company, and what we do is provide guided fault finding for technicians, and we provide over the internet remote programming for mainly European cars, but we do all cars.
I feel a lot better now because I was starting to worry about all these Diagnostic bills I'm getting on my credit card statement, but I guess it's okay now. It's legit. They're real people. Yeah. It's not from China.
It's not. Nope, we're an American company.
You know what's cool about what we do, and I think for me, one of the coolest things, I mean, remote programming is one thing, remote diagnostics, but when we get involved with the diagnostic, with the virtual world the way it is today, our ability or my ability to take a computer and take over a scan tool and take over a lab scope. I mean, heck, I can have someone take their scan tool, put it on a hot spot, and I can literally be sitting in that passenger seat, take over that scan tool, operate it, graph what I need to while they're driving the car, have a conversation with them. We get back to the shop, we can pull up a schematic. I pull up a schematic on my side, they pull up a schematic on theirs. They can hook up their lab scope. I can take it over, and probably one of the most frustrating things for some of these guys is that they set up their scope, but they don't know how to turn on the channel. They don't know what levels to look for, what time basis and everything. And so they can be there in real time in front of it, watching me adjust their scope, pull up the waveforms, take it in the right, all of the right measurements, and then we can have a discussion on what we see, what's right, what's wrong, and move on to that next test method. And so was really eye-opening for me as a technician doing it virtually like this is that every time I get involved in a diagnostic, it is literally a hands-on training, one-on-one at the car with that technician. And the stuff they come away with, if they apply what they learn, it is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
It takes
Why
it to another
don't they
level.
know it?
Why don't they know what?
What you just said. I don't know what time setting. I don't know how to set up the lab scope. Why own the lab scope at that point?
I have an idea about that. Can I answer that?
Have at it.
All right. Our business, as you know, is flat rate or salary with production base. And so what happens is these guys all, including ourselves when we were working on cars, need to get that silver bullet answer to get the car out of the shop. So a lot of times they never make it to the level where they're spending the time studying that lab scope and how to really use it as a diagnostic tool. And so even though that's a real deficit to that technician in his career, he doesn't really realize it until he has a couple of successes with us and says, oh my goodness, it was that easy.
Yeah.
Well,
and then, so I think that's an overwhelming reason why they don't know how to do it is they've never put themselves in the spot to actually really study it and learn it, because the lab scope often it provides the answer, but not the quick silver bullet answer, meaning you have to dedicate some time to go in there and learn that tool and learn to work it around a car.
And the only way that they're going to learn it is to plug into a lot of known good cars. And when during the normal operation of a day are you going to be allowed that extra 5-10 minutes on every car that comes in to get that scope up, hook it up, see what good signals look like? They don't do it. The mentality doesn't allow it.
Isn't that the root of the problem, though?
It is.
It's a big part of it, yeah.
Isn't that where we've gone wrong, is that we're not encouraging that? And
Okay,
shops are,
there's one thing between not encouraging it. We can blame the shop owners all day long because that's probably where 90% of the blame is at. But you're saying 5 to 10 minutes.
You know what? I've always thought, okay, to back up what I said, I've always thought that if a technician took 5 to 10 extra minutes when he worked on a car in the shop, got his scope out and practiced taking one signal of something that's easy to get at, he would start learning how to set his scope up. And better than that, he'd learn what good signals look like.
yeah.
But
So
if he
let's
doesn't,
not even say 5 to 10 minutes on a vehicle because that can add up and that can turn into real dollars and cents, especially for the shop owner. That is, if the business model requires the bay to be turned, good, bad, or indifferent on the business model, I don't begrudge the shop owner saying that 10 minutes is going to cost me X amount of dollars.
Right.
Every single car. So I can't allow for that without billing it. Okay, fine. But that technician does have an end time. They stop work at 5:30.
Right.
You're saying it's 5 to 10 minutes. That's one car that may be sitting in their bay or their own personal vehicle or the car they're supposed to look at the next morning. Why can't they pull that car in and do that one reading? One car, they're not on the clock.
Right.
They're not getting paid for it, but they're taking the time and now it's on them. It's like, my shop owner, because that's the flippant answer we hear all the time.
All the time.
From the
And it's a
technicians,
cop
my
out.
shop owner won't let me ... BS.
It's a cop-out, right?
It's a cop-out. Pull that car in. Nobody's going to stop you. You're not getting paid for it.
Right.
The shop owner's not losing any money on it. Pull that car in, hook it up, check one sensor, play around with it.
Right.
One car per day, that's 5 cars. By the end of the year, you'll have 250 plus known goods.
Well, and here's the thing though, right? Like you said, 5 minutes, right? Why? Well, because you're watching the screen and you're seeing there's no signal on the screen. Okay. I'm going to lower the amplitude a little bit. And all of a sudden I have a signal on the screen. Well, it doesn't look like anything I can discertain. That doesn't make sense to me.
and that happens a lot.
Right. Now I see you change the time base. All of a sudden it's on the screen, but it's moving so fast I can't see it. All right. Let's throw a trigger on it. Right. So what have we done? In 5 minutes or less, now we've put something on the screen that they can visualize and they can understand. We're visual.
But even if
learners.
they're uncomfortable doing that, it's a YouTube video away.
Right.
That's it. One YouTube video on how to set this one thing up. And you start with something simple like a 3-wire sensor. Super simple, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to, if I've got a four channel scope, I'm going to be able to check for power, ground, and signal. 3 different channels. I'm going to be able to watch the whole thing, do a voltage drop test. I can ascertain a ton of information by hooking up with just a few wires.
You bet.
YouTube video away.
Yeah.
Why don't more technicians do it? Because in my mind, again, it's you guys are providing a great service, necessary service. But at some point, we got to push back on these technicians and go.
Well, and here's the answer to what you're saying. Here's the long and short of it. I don't care how you take your 5 or 10 minutes in practice. I don't care if you do it on the clock, off the clock. That's not me. What I'm here to tell you is if you don't do it, you're not going to learn how. And that's the long and short of it.
Right.
And so whether that is your attitude as the technician not stepping up for yourself or the shop owner, whoever you want to blame it on, in the end, if it does not get done, you will not learn that equipment.
Right.
And that's the long and short
And are
of it.
you guaranteeing your obsolescence at that point?
You definitely are. Yes.
You are. And here's the thing. You said it. Okay. We said it. It's a cop out when, let's just address the shop owner getting blamed for everything in the shop for a second. Wouldn't we agree that if we were in an industry outside of the automotive industry, any employee of any company or corporation, there's going to be employees that stay at the bottom. There's going to be some that rise to the middle, and then the cream's going to rise to the top. Well, the guys that are the cream that are rising to the top are immersing themselves in that learning.
Yeah.
They're not spending 5 minutes a day. They're using that scope as their primary meter, and they're getting used to it day after day. They're studying. They're coming to events like we are at right now to get better at their craft.
Well,
so the cop out to me bothers the heck out of me when somebody blames it on that shop owner, because it's like, no, you're lazy. You want to go home at 5 o'clock and drink your beer or whatever, and you don't care to study. Well, I'll tell you what, not to run on, but to get to the level that Adam and I have to be at to help these guys on the hotline, we're immersed. And when I say immersed, I'm talking just about every waking hour is either studying, learning, applying, trying, all of that.
And that never goes away, ever.
Well, and so that's what I was getting ready to say, is because to them, a lot of the people who put it on the shop owner They say, well, if he wants me to learn that, he's going to use that knowledge to his advantage. No, dude, that's yours.
Right.
That's always yours.
Right.
And if you learn a new skill,
take it with you.
Because your toolbox rolls, right? So
Right.
it is your skill that you're building, not the shop owners.
Now,
Right.
as shop owners, we need to be looking at the people and saying, hey, Terry is fantastic at steering and alignment and suspension work and that kind of thing. We need to be addressing that,
Yes.
ADAS calibrations. He can see it in his head what he needs, right? The measurements work in his head in a certain way. Yes. He's a fantastic tech in that area. We're training him in that area.
Yes.
Right? I've got Ryan who works for me, and Ryan is fantastic at electrical work, and he's picking up on it, and he understands it in a way that Terry doesn't understand it. We need to make sure we're giving them the training that fits what they need and what they're passionate about.
Well, we have to make sure they have the equipment too.
Yeah.
There's obviously both sides to it, But the technician has to take a lot of responsibility themselves to train themselves.
Sweat equity.
Yes.
Sure.
And many of them, and darn good and well, that some of your more successful technicians take that job home with them. They do practice on the car. They do this.
100%.
But see, that's like he's saying, there's that top cream of the crop, right? The issue that we're going to run into is that what was acceptable for that fat part of the bell curve, the middle part, the ones that just come in and do the job and then they go home at 5 o'clock or whatever. Not the ones that, hey, I don't want to learn anything about electrical. That middle part, the base knowledge needed to stay in the middle is going to increase significantly over the next 5 years.
Look what
and
it already has done.
Yeah, absolutely. All of a sudden, they just don't see the cars in their bays yet. They're just 2 years away from seeing those like really high-end technologies that were fitted on $15,000 cars,
Right.
all of a sudden is going to be in their bay. And where they like 3-4 years ago going, I don't want to mess with this stuff.
Right.
It's like, oh, hold on now. I just want to hang suspension. It's like, that's not, all of a sudden you got to know ADAS to hang suspension.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
So
you lose your relevance if you don't stay on top of it.
absolutely. Now you've pushed yourself down in the bottom 20% because you haven't pushed yourself to at least stay on top of some things. So what happens to your earnings? Now you're in the bottom 20% of
And
earners.
a learning curve that could have been gradually handled along the way is now so steep they can't climb to the top.
Exactly.
And it's almost intimidating at that point for some of these technicians, and they give up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how many older technicians that I have worked with and have had come in? And I'm to the point, right? When I first started out, I've been doing this 20 years. Man, that's really great. That's awesome. But if I start asking questions, you say, I don't do electrical. Whoa, now. Like, we're beyond the electrical conversation at this point. Like, we're not talking about that. Bye, right? Yeah. And so I think that if we don't realize it in a different way and begin to embrace technology and say to the guys who are not, sorry, I mean, we really just don't have a place for you.
Right.
I know that sounds terrible.
I think it's a throwaway phrase to say embrace technology. I think it's embracing learning.
Yeah.
As a prerequisite of doing the job. In general, across the board, no different than I've got to have a toolbox to be a technician. Sure. I'm not going to be able to operate without a toolbox. It's like, okay, well, on top of that is, hey, it's 5 to 10 minutes every day. It's 5 to 10 minutes every single day.
Right.
Here's the thing about the lab scope, right? Is because once you use the lab scope, especially on basic sensor circuits, things like that, all of a sudden those issues become visible, right? And I'm a visual learner, right?
And most of us are hands-on and visual, and it's a good tool for that.
Right. So if I plug into a circuit and I'm driving down the road, and I'll never forget, I had an ICP sensor on a 7.3 one time. And you could literally drive the truck until it reached 104 degrees on the dot. And the truck would shut off and the ICP sensor would be bad. And we never could figure it out. And so I told the guys, hey, throw the scope on it and just watch it and see what happens. And you could see that when the sensor reached a certain temperature, the sensor opened internally. And they're like, well, how does that work? Well, all of a sudden you can visualize it. You see it on the screen. You see the voltage drop to zero.
Right.
Duh. It makes sense. I can see it. Guess what? Now when I pick up a DVOM, I know what I'm looking at because I visualized it. It makes sense to me. I understand what's happening.
Well, there's something else on the lab scope topic. We brought up you got to practice 5-10 minutes every day, 5-10 minutes on your cars. Get this practice in. But another thing that leads to, and one of the other downfalls we have, is if that equipment is not readily available and easy to use, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
What I mean by this is if you keep it in a box and you keep it under a bench, you are not going to be the guy that's going to dig it out and use it every time. And so the more successful shops, the more successful technicians that I see, they have this scope on a rolling cart. They have everything accessible, well organized, so they can grab it and hook it up to the car in a reasonable amount of time. And it's all of those things added together that added the efficiency of using it.
Right.
And you know darn good and well, you've been out to many shops out there. When you walk in, you say, hey, you go grab your current probe. Let's hook that up to the car. They go, oh, okay, let me go find it. You almost want to roll your eyes and pound your own head and say, what do you mean go find it? You should be using that every dang day, What's going on here? And then they dig it out and you're like, gee, let me guess the battery's dead. Yeah. I mean, that's...
Mine's always dead because they leave it on.
Get these calls every
I don't know. Has anybody designed an auto shut off?
They do now, by the way.
Yeah.
There's several that have auto shut off, and then that's frustrating because it shuts off while you're using it. So all of us go and turn off that function. All right. But then, but to answer your question, there are some that are powered by the scope. As of right now, Pico has a series of current probes that are no longer battery powered. They're powered by the scope box itself through a separate circuit.
That's pretty neat.
It is pretty neat, but you're also talking, double the cost for a current probe. But it's neat.
Good current probes, what, $150?
300 for those.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
So,
yeah.
I know,
Still
but
not
you know
that
what?
bad. Yeah.
The
Right in
stuff
that
you
range.
fix with it, the stuff you diagnose with it, worth every penny.
Oh, yeah.
Well, just not having to change that stupid battery. Because now on top of adding the battery in there and having to replace the battery and remember to turn it off, I had my first current probe was a Snap-on, and to change the battery, it was like take 2 screws out, pry it up just a little bit, slip the battery out, slip it, and turn into this whole thing. So yeah, I mean, it turned into a giant pain in the rear. Some of them were a little bit better to like put the little slip box in the back, make it really easy to throw
And
a
then
battery
solder
in
the
there.
wires you
Annoying.
broke when you did it.
Yeah, exactly. All of mine are floating around without covers on the back of them. They're just like floating off a mile in,
You know what makes a really good current probe? That's super cheap. We talked to him last year, Josh.
Curian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Actually,
probe.
they have a great line of tools. I'm
Yeah.
impressed with that.
The N2, we play around with that a little bit. That's our battery tester at one of our shops. But the current probe was extremely, it's cheap as hell. And he was running a flash sale or whatever. It was like 20% off everything on the site. So picking one up of those, we have an OTC as well, but that Curian one was legit.
Back to something you mentioned earlier, it really struck me, is the visual. Mm-hmm. And it's funny that you mentioned that, and what struck me about that, and Adam will back this up, is that whenever we teach a lab scope, can we agree that most technicians are intimidated by that tool until they learn it?
Yeah.
So what I start the class with is I put the scope up on the screen and I said, what is that? So it's an oscilloscope. No, it's a visual voltmeter.
Yeah,
I start every class with that. You guys need to not be scared of this tool because it's a visual voltmeter that's better than any voltmeter you've ever used because it will visualize what the failure is for you on the screen once you learn how to use it. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay.
It makes sense. It's super simple. And look, I'm going to tell people, go into the tool.
So some of them have a lot of buttons.
They do.
That ATS, that E...
most of the people who aren't using one are not going to have an $8,000 scope. I guess maybe.
But you're right. There's a lot.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people that look at that versus the Pico, and they're trying to decide like which way do I go.
Go in and start clicking buttons.
The ATS, I get it. I'm a button presser until something works, but I'm saying like it's intimidating.
It's funny.
It's easy to start with like a...
Didn't mean to interrupt you, but what you said was so funny to me because literally in my class today, just a couple hours ago, the topic of lab scope came up. And I said, one of the things that I'm asked about a lot is what settings do I use? What voltage scale? What time based? I'm like, guys, I'm a button pusher. And you just set it across the table. It's like, well, what do? I hook it up and I push buttons till I get what looks good.
Right. But you look at something like the Autel, I think the 919 has the scope built into it. So I learned on the Snap-on, right? And the Snap-on has guided component testing, which you can knock all you want. But when you use it with the lab scope, it sets all the things up for you. And then you can run the test. It's a great way to learn because then you start to see, okay, if I'm testing this kind of sensor,
and
this
I
is
need
this
to have the time base of this.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And so, and it'll sometimes give you the patterns that you're trying to look for. It makes it a good way to learn
Some
if
of
you're
the
messing
Snap-on
around.
teaches you where to put the probes, right?
Yeah.
So that's all very
Super
helpful
easy.
when you're new.
That's all great. If you want to start graduating to something a little bit fancier or more flexible, in my mind, you grab the 919, and now like you can zoom in and zoom out with your fingers. It starts to work like a smartphone a little bit. You can hit the buttons really fast. It looks really nice too.
And you got to admit, that's a lot of bang for the buck, that scope.
It is ridiculous, the value.
It is an incredible scope for the price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not only that. You have a full-blown scan tool with JBox.
And a good one.
It
works.
And a good scan tool, JBox, and a very nice lab scope with the wireless connection.
And they even added logic analyzers now. Serial logic analyzers for buses on the telescope.
And the math channels are in there now. They've come a long way.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I should point out though.
Serial decoder, for dissecting a CAN bus problem and seeing if it's a module violating the network. The Autel actually now has the software in there, like the TP scope and the Pico scope, where the software analyzes the data packet to say to the tech, okay, this packet failed. Let's go track back what module that came from.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty legit.
A nice feature.
Oh, you use it every day. Get out of here.
Don't use it every day.
Well, it's a learning curve, but nice. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It is a learning curve.
I will point out.
I got to message my tech and ask him. I will use this thing.
Hey, listen, just the one thing that you need to know about that scope is if you use it remotely and you put it under the hood of the truck, you got to make sure you tie it to something.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you look outside and your tech's driving down the parking lot and it's dragging the ground underneath,
bouncing down the road behind
so it's
you.
not good
That's
for
not
it.
a good day.
it made me very nervous.
Yeah.
Serial packets.
Here we go.
CAN
Just, while you're typing,
line to.
we teach an 8-hour class on that. That is a very in-depth subject, serial decoding, right?
Really? I didn't know you taught a class on that.
We have a groundbreaking 8-hour, what we call it network nightmares, solving the diagnostic distress. And what we do is in 8 hours, we take a classroom full of technicians, and by the time they're done with it, they have 5 scope visuals that say, if you see this waveform pattern, go find your fuse out. If you find this waveform pattern, you have a broken wire. If you see this, then you have a module violating the network.
We found a really good way to do it in a hands-on format in a big classroom with a lot of technicians.
That's pretty cool.
It is really cool. We did it at Vision and a screaming success there. We did it at Bimmers. Oh gosh, we've done it at Bimmers,
done
ATE,
it like 5 or 6
Vision.
places, and it's just gotten rave reviews.
You should do it at AST.
We'd love to. All we need to do is get invited.
Yeah, there is that.
Well, where do I send the email, I guess?
The network
Aren't you the
nightmares
events
classes.
coordinator, event guy? What's your title with it?
Yeah, I'm the events chair.
He's the events chair. So the fact that you guys haven't gotten invited is
That sounds important.
Is entirely his fault. It's a deadbeat call.
But that is a full day class, though. It's a long class, but the reviews we get in the hallways afterwards are just it's
groundbreaking.
It's groundbreaking, and we've been told that by engineers as well. That they're like, "How did you guys figure this out?"
That's awesome.
Well, we figured it out with 2 years of study, and we speak about that 5 minutes a day. I think Adam's collected 300-400 waveforms that are just in our classes. Never mind the 12,000 that he's got in the database.
30.
In other words, we're like really studied on it.
Yeah.
And the good thing is we're able to break that down so that by the end of it, a technician that's even learning lab scoping can go, oh, this really is a visual thing, right? And set the scope and look at the waveform and then go back to the class book and remember where we showed you to go for this. And we had, within 2 days of that last class, both of us had 3 or 4 emails from techs that were in there that going, I found the problem in 10 minutes.
I saw it. It's awesome. That feedback is wicked cool for us.
And so here's the thing is if they don't go back and practice it, it can quickly turn into wasted
So what did we
right?
just do? Did we just come full circle, talked about some cool stuff, and it came right back to practice, right back to that same thing again. But super important. But one of the things too one of the things, at least I see from an instructor and a diagnostic standpoint to do during the day, part of our job isn't necessarily just teaching them what's cool and everything. We also have to have a way to get them excited to want to learn, because if we have a technician that goes to the shop and doesn't want to do in-cylinder compression waveforms, doesn't want to do relative cranking compression, then maybe I, as an instructor, didn't get the excitement across
Didn't
to
light
get them
his
to
fire.
want to practice. And so there's another side to that whole thing, because
course.
not everybody walks out of the class with the same excitement, And so, when I'm talking to someone, well, have you done this test yet? Well, no, I haven't. It's like, well, why? And sometimes I have to look back on my instruction over the years with them and say, did I not excite them? Did I not prove to them why it's so important? So some of that falls back on us too.
Well, and I've told this before, but in 2018, I was in an Ian Levy class talking about, and he took over the class for somebody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the guy was going through the class and he was droning on, and Ian could tell they were losing the class. And so here he pops in and he starts talking about the Mercedes-Benz multi-beam, and he starts explaining it, and people are like slamming their books, getting ready to walk out. And the reason they were going to walk out is because they're saying, if that's where we're going, I'm good. I'll just quit now.
And
right.
that's a shame.
And then the others were invigorated by it. This is cool technology. We talked with, who was it? Hella Goodman and talking about the Matrix headlights.
Right.
Right.
I might put that out this week.
That's an amazing episode. Right. And we're talking about and Peter is so smart when it comes to those headlights, right? And how that system works and why it does what it does. I mean, it's just a headlight.
Right.
God, isn't that something? Just a headlight.
Yeah. 20 years ago, it was a bulb, right?
With a wire going to it.
Right. I had an advisor the other day, and Jade was pricing a set of headlights for a F650. And she comes in and says, okay, I've got everything. And Terry looks at the estimate and he's like, why is it $4,000? And she said, well, I priced everything we normally do. He said, Jade, they're steel beam headlights. They're just like a little chunk of glass. And she's like, oh, I've never seen a headlight like that before, right? Because we don't ever see that anymore, right? We don't ever see something as simple. And especially as it's getting more advanced, we're seeing headlight systems that are, we had an Infiniti the other day. Dude took a Brillo pad. He was behind a car. They had painted the road, and it sprayed paint up on the headlight. And he took a Brillo pad and cleaned it.
Oh,
and
nice
said,
job.
I want you to replace my headlight housing.
That was brilliant.
Yeah. Brand new Infiniti. I want you to replace my headlight housing. And if you had heard the words that came out of this man's mouth when he said, or when Jade
How much
said,
were they?
$3,800
Each. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's like, dude, you just threw in a $4,000 component,
The technology that dude was talking about, the good guy from Hella, like we have HIDs or LEDs with the mechanical movement and all that stuff. We have that now.
Yeah.
This is module driven LEDs that can
self-leveling.
They can move the patterns.
Yep.
They can display different patterns on the ground. They know if this is awesome. As they're approaching the sign, they can dim that section so it doesn't block the or overly reflect on the road sign.
Yep.
They can shine on the pedestrian that the radar picked up. This is all happening it's amazing.
And
yeah.
Quite frankly, that technology's been around in Mercedes since 2015.
Yeah.
In other words, the autonomous headlight assistant that can light the deer up on the side of the road. For example, I have a 4-year-old Escalade, and that has automatic headlamps where it will lower the right or the left headlamp as traffic is approaching. Same thing. And they'll also now follow on turns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you consider that, that's incredible technology.
That's been mechanical. The movement is going away and is now going to be LEDs.
Module-based control.
Right.
Yeah. It's going to be all LEDs moving around and doing their thing without any of the
color
motors.
temperature changes.
That's what it is on my Cadillac. It's all LEDs.
Well, and
that's cool.
That was part of Ian's point when he was talking about those headlights. Is he said, I want you to think about a car meeting an opposing car, and it's running 60 miles an hour. And he said, I'm telling you, it has the technology to be able to see the eyeball of the human being in the opposing car. He said, now we're not implementing that, but he said, I want you to think about how much data would have to be transferred from one module to another module to make it happen so fast that if you're hitting an opposing car at 100 miles an hour, right? How fast does it have to move to be able to see your eyeball and isolate your eyeball and take the light off of your eyeball and then turn that light back on as you pass and follow the eyeball as it goes by? That's a ton of data. I mean, that's a lot of information very quickly.
And that leads to the next thing that we talk about emerging technologies. Okay. Let's reverse just a little bit. Go back to that tech that's not well studied and practiced.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you got a car with those automatic headlights. You said how much data has to move.
Yeah.
Gigabytes. Okay. Sometimes tens of gigabytes. Now that gives rise to the next technology that is now showing up in people's bays on the 2020 and up cars. And that's the Ethernet networking backbone. Now, if you consider that we're still trying, some people in the industry are still trying to figure out how to diagnose a CAN bus.
Right.
And the base 100, the 100 base T1 base model Ethernet in the cars is 100 times faster than CAN.
Listen, I just need RJ45s on the end of it. You give me some RJ45s,
Right.
I'm good, man.
Right.
I'll run me a new piece of Cat 6. I'm okay. We're
Right.
good.
But if you consider, you made a statement, how much data has to move?
Yeah.
Well, now they're into gigabyte speed 2022 and up Ethernet, which is 10,000 times faster than CAN.
Yeah.
Think about that.
You know what's so frustrating about it? It's because we had to.
Right.
We don't have a choice.
The autonomous cars.
It's absolutely crazy what we've done with these cars. We don't have a choice. It's going to be that fast, and we're going to have to fix them.
So I talked to, we did a interview with a guy who runs a networking company, and he does like VoIP telephone, stuff like that. And we were talking a while back, and I was putting a new network in my shop, and I talked to one of his network engineers, and he said, what you don't understand about this is, he said, you're talking about running copper Cat 6. And he said, the reality is he said that 1 gig transfer speed that we saw 10 years ago, he said, I want you to think about an access point, and that access point has 10 people on it. And he said, every video they're downloading or watching on YouTube is 2 to 4 gigs. And he said, you have 10 people watching a video at the same time. He said, I want you to understand that multi-directional, because access points are now multi-directional, right? They have multi-in, multi-out, multi-user.
That's called duplex.
Exactly. And so now all of a sudden, he's like, you've got to have enough bandwidth to be able to move 10 gigs to this. And most access points are 2.5 gigs, right? But I mean, think about that. Because I remember my first computer didn't have a 10 gig hard drive in it.
Right.
Right.
And you still loved it.
I know, it was awesome. David still runs a 386.
Hey, I had a 286 back in the day. That thing was awesome.
Man, they were in the day. They really were.
Those were the days.
I mean, but here's one thing. And since,
one quick point. The issue is that too many technicians see the technology in your 2015 Escalade. Or you said Mercedes, 2019 Escalade. It's only 4 years old.
Right.
They haven't seen it in their bays yet. They're getting 15s, 16s, maybe 17s.
Right.
Most shops, 7 to 10 years. That's how old the vehicle is coming in the door.
Yep.
They have not fathomed I'm going to have to work on this tomorrow. They have no idea.
No.
They think I'm just hanging brakes.
But this 2019 Escalade has, Gary, how many networks?
We just did a study on that car for our network class. That car, that 19 Escalade, that's now 4 model years old, has 6 networks servicing 130 modules in the car.
yeah.
6 separate networks.
And it's old
running
now.
like 8 different protocols,
Yeah.
and it's old technology.
And so where are we going as far as network infrastructure? Are we going to because we've got gateways, right? And Chrysler went to the TIPM, which they said was their gateway and star configuration, however you want to look at it. Is that what you guys think we're going to see more of as more of a router or switch style?
No, but we're going to have more than a single gateway. These are multiple gateway cars.
Right.
We've got a lot of, remembering, for those that are listening, the gateway is who transfers information from one data bus to another data bus, one language to another. When we've got multiple networks in a car sharing multiple pieces of data from network to network, we've got multiple gateways sharing stuff back and forth. It's almost
we researched
insanity.
6 separate gateways on my car.
Do you?
6.
So do
It's
you?
nuts.
Do you eventually think we're going to get to a point much like network infrastructure in engineering, right? For
No question.
instance, I mean, are we going to have a switch and it's a managed switch and we can see the data that moves across the switch and adjust it? I mean, I can pull up my network right here. I can show you who's on the network, what they're doing, what's active, what's not active, where the wireless is going.
You can ping each module and make
Right.
sure it pings back. That's exactly where we're going. If you look at the Mercedes, I'm writing an article right now for Mercedes Star Tune magazine that's on the Ethernet backbone, which is brand new technology it started out, I believe, in 2 of the 2020 Mercedes models. The S-Class was one of them, and I forget what the other one is without my notes, but that's called a full Ethernet backbone. So that is going to be one of the first type of platforms where we're able to ping for information through the network, just like you do on your laptop.
I got to be honest, that makes me giddy. I'm going to sell my shop and go back to working on cars. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? That sounds awful.
All you need to do is just spend 5 minutes a day with that lab scope.
Right? Oh yeah, I'm good.
Sorry, I forget the podcast. I need to ask questions here. Which lab scope is deciphering serial packets? You said the Autel. Which other ones?
You have the Pico does it. You have the TP scope that we import that to the U.S. from the Netherlands. Okay. That scope has serial decoder on it. The Pico does. The Autel now has it. Automotive scope wise, I think that's about it, isn't it, Adam? When you go beyond that, now you're into Tektronix and LaCroix, and you're $30,000.
Automotive based, those are the 3. But something to keep in mind is every one of them goes about it differently. Some can handle different protocols. Some are can handle say a dozen different protocols where you may only be able to do count on one, or so there are different. But those are the only 3 you're going to be playing with that do that. But I got to tell you something. I mean, serial decoding and network packet following and tracing, immense amount of study in that. But with some study with it, it's amazing what we're able to find. And when you're dealing with a car, like Gary's Escalade, for example, first thing we have to determine is which network has the problem. So you've got a choice. You go, wait a second, we got a problem. Okay, where is it? Let's go find who it is. Then we get into it. I mean, there's several steps, and some of the diagnostics on these cars, not to go too far off on, in the weeds here, but this is some time consuming stuff, guys.
Well, and it is. And what's frustrating about it is in some cases, I don't think it should be. Right. In some cases, the manufacturer's not, and we can say all kinds of different things. Here's a perfect spot to make a Land Rover joke. We got hate mail.
You've only got one Land Rover joke.
Land Rover send the tow truck on over.
Right. Yeah. We got this message from this guy this morning who's a Land Rover specialty shop, and he is like really mad at us because we made jokes about Land Rovers, and he's like, we shouldn't discriminate against Land Rovers.
You're not, but he's busy, isn't he?
That's what I thought. I mean, he's like, they're wonderful cars, and I'm like,
people get all sensitive about their car lines. I used to say that I used to do the old diesel thing and say, you could have a Chevy Duracrap, right? You could have a Dodge Bummins.
That's right.
Or you could have a Ford Power Joke.
That's exactly
What's
right.
What's your choice?
That's exactly right.
And then people would get their hair on fire and go, how could you say that about
clearly the Cummins is the best one. So it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. It's called Let's Have Some Fun.
I know, right? Well, who knows? Who knows?
Are you guys going to be at Apex?
Most likely not this year.
Okay.
If so, it'll be a quick stop in.
No, I'm in the management, not the technical stuff. So this network class is 8 hours. Do you do it live only? No online?
Live only. We are in the process of recording it for online.
Okay.
And it's going to end up being 8-hour-long modules roughly, or maybe 9 45-minute long modules. Yeah. This is a really, really in-depth class.
Yeah.
So we are.
That's the kind of stuff, though, because I have one technician, and he's a nerd, and he, you give him what you think is an advanced class, and he's like, no, I think I've already been through that.
Oh, he'd enjoy this.
Oh, he'd really enjoy it.
I just messaged him, and he's like, tell me more. And I'm like, okay, I'll find out.
He'll come out of that one with his head spinning. I promise you that.
Yeah.
But
that's what you need sometimes is to challenge some of these guys. But you're talking about the top 10%. Well, I've got other techs that are like, and you need to find, like you're saying, am I doing a good job of challenging these guys and getting them excited about? Yeah. And for a shop owner, that's really difficult.
Sure. Yeah.
How do I get them excited about learning new technology rather than dismissing it and going, I don't need it?
No, I think it's kind of a fine line too between getting them excited and going too far. I can get up there and rah and cheerlead a class and think I'm just tearing it apart just to have some guys look at me like I have 3 heads and not realize that I stomped on them instead of got them excited. So, from a presenter standpoint, there's a pretty fine line there too, just like there is from a shop owner standpoint. How far do you push? How far can you go? And when did you break that limit, if you want to look at it that way? So there's a lot of different ways to look at that whole topic.
There really is. And the problem I see coming up, the real rub of what's going on in this industry right now, if you want to talk about the mix of shop owners, technicians, manufacturers, is that look at the $3,500 headlights. Okay. We run into many techs every day on our hotline that they're 5 modules in and 2 parts in.
Yeah, dude. I'll
tell you a quick story, and it'll be very quick. It's a long story, but I'm going to make it in 30 seconds. Okay. We had a Volkswagen.
Oh, that one.
I won't mention the shop. It doesn't matter. It happens all over the country. It had a problem with the throttle. You put your foot on the gas and the throttle wouldn't move. First thing put in was a throttle motor. Next thing that was put in is an ECM. Next thing that was put in was the APP sensors in the car. Then it went over to Volkswagen, to a dealer. They diagnosed it as bad wire harnesses.
Now
this is no joke. This is no joke. This happened to us a week ago. Off air, I can show you guys this case. Okay, literally, it spent 2 months between the shop and Volkswagen. It had $12,000 worth of work done on the car. Nobody was right. You know what was wrong with that car?
What?
It had a mouse house in the air intake of the turbo.
There's 2 inlets to the turbo.
That's what was wrong
plugged.
with that car.
You know what kills me?
Have 2 months at a Volkswagen dealership and back and forth with all these parts replaced. Oh my God. And it's a mouse house.
Did anybody do a visual inspection?
Yes, they had the tubes off of it, but it was in the bend.
It was in the bend, but let me point something out here. Here you've got a car, not to beat this up, but you've got a car that won't accelerate. You cannot throttle it. It sets code saying, I'm not going to accelerate, but it doesn't give you any idea where to go.
Right.
And here's a car that they've done everything on. And our diagnostic approach when looking at the whole situation is, look, let's do an in-cylinder compression waveform. And I kid you guys not, it was the in-cylinder pressure waveform. Once we gathered from that, we saw the massive amount of intake vacuum and idle.
And we were like, this car can't breathe. And
let me ask you this. Would you have been able to find it if they had done something a little bit less invasive, like a relative with a delta on the intake?
Nope, because it would have been the same for every cylinder. So from a delta pressure standpoint, all your pulses would have been the same. So from a relative cranking compression, it would have been the same. Right. The key was an engine that's idling at almost 25 inches of vacuum. Right. Which that by itself tells you the intake's restricted. And to be fair, the way the turbo's laid out in a car like that, it does have 2 inlets that feed the turbo. And the mouse house was around, a solid aluminum bend corner. Yeah. Everyone would have missed it. You got to give them credit on this. But the thing is technicians sometimes jump right to the big, this. They're going all electronics, everything's like, look, did anyone make sure this engine can even rev up on its own? Can it even accelerate? But no one did, because they couldn't make it accelerate because the throttle wouldn't move the throttle. Yeah. But like we did on Diagnostic, I said, hey, we're going to give it a vacuum leak, and it's struggling to breathe.
So as a shop owner, I just need the answer quickly.
That's a problem, isn't it, as a shop owner?
I just need... And it's not necessarily that I don't want to give the technicians, my guys are all on salary. So if they're going to take 3 hours, they're going to take 3 hours. I need justification for it so I can charge appropriately.
That's what you want right there, right?
I don't necessarily need the silver bullet.
Okay. Well, then
I need
That's a real silver bullet.
That's a real silver bullet.
Yeah. What I try to challenge my guys is I need a systematic and logical approach.
Right.
I don't need you, well, maybe I'll try this, because you're jumping down 3 different paths that are going to lead you down.
Right.
Well, it's not necessarily that. Something like that goes in. I'm going to immediately go to that throttle body and I'm going to say, hey.
Why aren't you working?
Now, the only thing I will say that my technician probably would have checked the throttle input. He would have seen it and goes, hey, that throttle's working properly.
Well, I think
And
it
we wouldn't have
disables in this
But
case.
it was disabled.
This one was
It wouldn't work.
disabling within a millisecond of
And
startup.
so, but here's the thing.
I think he would have still swept it though.
It's swept
he would have-
fine when you do it manually, but the computer couldn't do it.
He might have even disassembled it and said, dude, there's no reason to replace this particular component.
And
We would
there
have been
you
dead in the water.
Right.
Yep.
And I would say, let's just throw a throttle body on there. Let's see what happens.
But if you have a parts cannon that adds up to $12,000, and we find the answer by analyzing in-cylinder scope waveform, that goes right back to the learning curve of, hey guys, we're beyond the way we used to do it in the 80s and the 90s. We have to embrace this lab scope, because if you want to talk about percentages.
Well, hold on now. Would they not have been able to look at PIDs at idle? You're saying it's at 25 inches?
At 25 inches
it wouldn't idle?
No.
It would do is
idle.
idle, but you could not change the throttle, period.
Okay.
And this problem got by not only this good shop, and they're not slouches at this shop, they're really good techs, and it got by a Volkswagen dealer.
Well,
So, right?
It's not really saying much, guys.
Oh my gosh! Here you go. Really, guys? Really?
Here comes the angry. Yeah. Hey, I'm a Volkswagen guy.
I know, right?
oh, we get them all the time.
But it's true, it goes back to that learning curve, guys, and it goes back to the fact that if we're not going to embrace the future technologies, I was going to say the percentage of fixes that, and Adam will agree with this because we study it in our database, we are 85% fixed with a lab scope. 15% fix with any other tool, 85% fix on the car. Now, remember, the calls we get aren't the easy ones because the tech's already 3 weeks or 3 months stuck up against the wall and 5 modules in. 85% of them we sort out remotely with a lab scope. That's an amazing statistic if you think about it.
Yeah,
Very
that's
amazing.
insane.
The experience is really important, right? Because I remember an Audi one time that had no heat in the car, right? And it turned out that it was the rear heat module that took everything down, right? And until that module was replaced, and until we found somebody that knew that module would do that, there was no service information anywhere that said that.
No.
There was no data anywhere that said the two systems were even remotely connected.
Right.
Yet we don't have heat in the back, and it indicates it's the front module in the trouble code, and that's from Otis. That's not from Aldata or Mitchell or somewhere else.
Well, and those problems are only going to get worse.
Well, so that's
they really are.
So that's what I was getting ready to say. Is let's go back to the network conversation, right? You look at a Ubiquity network. You
always want to go back to the network.
Well, you look at a Cisco network.
He builds his brand new shop, and he will go on a 45-minute tirade telling me about he's running this wire, and then I'll have this, and then I'll have it hooked up to the. I have no idea what the hell he's talking about. I'm like, oh, great. So you're going to have internet? Yeah, but.
Well, so
Sorry, go ahead.
Here's the thing, though, is that if you look at that infrastructure, right, and you go into any one of its back ends, right, what you're going to see is you're going to see complete control structures. You're going to see what port is down. If I have a port that's over-reporting, right, so in other words, if I have something that's sending a constant signal over and over, saying it's freaking out, almost like it's trying to intrude the network, I can see that. I can turn that port on. I can turn that port off. I can control that network from afar, right? Whatever I need to do, I can control that. I'll never forget years ago, I was working on a 6.0 Power Stroke, and I spent 4 days looking for a strategy. I didn't want to know what the trouble code said it was. I didn't care what the trouble code said it was. I wanted the strategy of sync. What is the difference between crank and cam sync, and what is the other sync that shows up in the PCM, and what's the logic behind it? How does that module look at it? Later on, we've been going to a show, one of the most phenomenal shows you could ever imagine going to, Equipment and Tool Institute, Tool Tech, right? And you meet with manufacturers, you meet with their engineers, you meet with some really cool people. And there were conversations being had that said, yeah, but you don't understand, we didn't design that system. Whoa,
We didn't design the module.
Right. We bolted that in. We just put that in. We bought that.
We ordered that module from Bosch. Bosch designed that. They know how it works.
Sure.
We
don't know what the logic is.
Right.
And so we just have somebody that writes the service information Bosch sends us, and we just put that in the manual. Here you go. And I'm like, but I mean, think about what we could fix if we knew the strategy, if we knew how it was supposed to work.
I agree. It's a huge problem. And I'll tell you why I find that it doesn't happen. A lot of the manufacturers look at that as their secret sauce. which means they'll give you just enough to maybe confuse you into replacing a couple modules. Here comes more comments.
Right.
But it's true. They're very vague in a lot of these areas. And so vagueness with a technician that's already struggling to understand the technology equals parts replacement. And that's unfortunate.
Why do you think it is that we've seen, and I don't want to pick on dealer techs, that's not what I'm saying, but I've hired a lot of dealer techs, and they really, it seems, don't understand electricity, right? And one of the things I always saw is if you go...
Let's not say that. Like, they struggle sometimes with diagnosing electrical issues.
Yeah, but they struggle with not following the pattern. Replace this, call this number. If that doesn't work, replace that, right? And so one of the things that I see is if I go and look at service information, let's take Chrysler. What does it say to do? Resistance test, resistance test, resistance test. Yeah, and the problem is it never teaches them how it works.
Worst test you could ever do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Useless. Yeah.
And so they want you to do a resistance test. I'll never forget. You remember Ken Neal?
Sure.
Ken Neal was teaching a class one time and he was talking about Chrysler. He was talking about a downstream oxygen sensor in a Chrysler van. He said, this van would not run properly. Fuel trims were skewed. Something was wrong. We couldn't figure out what it was. It had been to all these different shops. Eventually, we unplugged the downstream and simulated downstream. And as we simulated it and moved it back and forth, we could watch fuel trims change. Sure. There was nothing in service information about it.
By the way, there still isn't on those Chryslers.
Right.
That post-catastrophic, they can skew that fuel trim through the roof.
Right.
And people don't know.
There's no PID. There's no nothing.
They can put it right on the wall on the Chryslers.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of the manufacturers say, our rear trim authority is 2 to 3%.
Yeah,
not on Chrysler.
Exactly. It'll absolutely skew it all the way out. Mm-hmm. And so he goes and he talks to engineers at Chrysler and they said, listen, but it's not our problem to fix that. Oxygen sensor will not fail in warranty. We know that sensor has such a low probability of failing in our warranty. It's not my job to fix a car that's out of warranty. That's your job. Right?
See, that's unfortunate.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Because it comes down to a brand loyalty thing. I mean, here we're talking about technicians and time and getting beat up and learning and tooling and all that. But what about the brand loyalty with what you just said? Some of these manufacturers just shoot themselves in the foot with the secret squirrel stuff. And what's even worse is the manufacturers that refuse to play with the aftermarket.
Yeah.
So now you have a Mercedes-Benz car in your lot for 4 months.
Yeah.
And it can't be fixed. How's that brand looking to the owner?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Why wouldn't these manufacturers get a little more smart, let's say? I understand patents and secret sauce and all that. I get it, okay? But there's ways that we could guide a technician to a fault, and there's ways that manufacturer can work with the aftermarket to support their brand. For example, BMW does a phenomenal job of that. I would say that out of all the manufacturers in the industry, BMW and Toyota are the two that really defend and support their brand out in the aftermarket.
The newest Toyota software.
Make a difference.
The newest Toyota software. It's not even out to the public yet. It's not even out to the dealers yet. And it's not on this laptop. It's on one of the other laptops.
Yeah, they were offering it out to independent repair
let's
shops.
Work through this. Let's talk about
absolutely.
And why? Because they recognize that is part of the brand strategy.
That's right.
That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to build. And part of me says, and I've pissed a lot of people off. And poor Donnie is going to hate my guts for saying this, and he already's mad at me because I keep saying it. But I personally think that if we took and we made NASTF a barrier of entry that made them feel more confident in what we were doing, that said we're professionals and we know what we're doing and we're secure, we're insured, if nothing else, they wouldn't have an excuse to point at us and say, well, they shouldn't be fixing it.
Right.
No, I've just proven to you I'm insured. If I screw up, I'm insured, buddy.
Right.
And I'm proving to you I'm an actual business.
Right.
Right. That's different.
And I'm bonded against the theft and all that. Yeah. Which is the purpose of that program.
Absolutely.
Where I part company with that program is it's gotten to the stage where, and boy, I'm probably going to get slaughtered for saying that.
I'm sitting here, I'm going, don't do it.
Don't do it,
Don't
Gary.
do it, Gary.
I'm going to do it because this
we need
is
to
the biggest
put
problem.
a mask over it.
Yeah, you guys might
Here
want
it
to
goes.
cut my mic right now because I'm going to give it to you.
Commercial break.
Yeah. Yes.
That's it.
The biggest problem I have with that program right now is what they've set up with the security keys. Now, I don't mind the manufacturer and NASTF doing the LSID, doing the vetting of the shop, the bonding of the shop. That's all good business, okay, to relate with the manufacturers. Where I really part company is how this key program thing is going now, because and if I'm wrong, I'm sure we're going to get comments on this, but I don't believe I'm wrong because I've studied it pretty heavily the way they're doing it. The AirPlay thing, you have to register as a tech. Mm-hmm. That shop then has to pay an extra $45 fee to get the key programmed. And the worst part of the program, to me, it's almost mafia-like. And that's the comment he didn't want me to just make. Okay. Yeah. But it is almost mafia-like in that, once we've done that and we've done that transaction, now we're going to put that key programming out onto the whatever website, and anybody can go grab that job. Now, here's the problem I have with that. If I'm working with a client at my shop or anybody's shop, and we're way into a deep repair, and it comes down to the fact that we've just programmed that module, and now we have to go through this game with AirPlay to get the keys initialized. Now, especially if it's a sensitive case with a lot of money involved, now as a shop owner or a customer, retail customer, have to put that car in the hands of a completely unknown technician that is certified to do that work. Doesn't mean he's qualified, because I can get an ASE certification and be a total wreck working on a car. Well, this is the problem I have with the direction that this program's going. I've always been very supportive of NASTF and the whole program because it made business sense until they went there.
Right.
When they went there, now what they're doing is causing excess expense, at really badly excess customer delays.
Right.
And they're taking that job out of that shop. For example, if I came to your shop and said, you're not qualified to do that, I'm going to send one of my guys over to work on your customer's car, what would you say to me?
Yeah, I'd have a problem with that. Sure.
It's a terrible thing.
Is this set in stone, or is this just their trial? And isn't this just in beta?
I think it's out of beta now.
I think it's way out of beta.
Yeah.
Are they willy-nilly signing everybody and anybody up? Because wasn't that the beef they had? They had only given access to Perkins and
there were some people.
That's the problem I have with it, is that you have certain companies and certain people with access, and to me that turns it into a racket. Okay, and I do have a problem with that, and a big problem with it. And
knowing the people that were on the inside, they made sure they were in the right place at the right time to help make the decision. But I don't know. I haven't ran into that. So
it's a big debate in the industry. So I'm sure we'll get some really negative feedback.
I'm in it quite deep, and I'm just staying quiet because I have my own problems.
That's a really good idea.
That's a very good idea.
So what's the solution?
The solution is very simple. The issue is key security.
Yeah.
Okay. Which means in the internet age, instead of having to go through all this, don't you think that the manufacturers could do that themselves? Meaning, isn't there a way that we could have a customer at a shop that goes on camera with their license and says, yes, I'm the certified owner of this car. My license matches the VIN number. Go ahead and get me a set of keys. I mean, it's not rocket science, and we've turned it into rocket science.
The manufacturer, though, they don't want to do all that. That's what they're trying to avoid. They're abdicating. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
They're abdicating it to NASTF. NASTF's trying to figure out a solution. Right. I don't know if this is the right route. I don't know. I don't have an opinion on that particular subject. But when I signed up with Amazon to be have you guys ever tried to sell something on Amazon?
No, I've not tried to sell something on Amazon.
If you try to sell something on Amazon, they will connect you to a virtual agent. This is a guy sitting in his house, but he works for Amazon. You have to stand in view of the webcam with your license. It has to match, and you have to speak into it.
Yeah.
My name is, and they have to watch it, and then certify that you are actually who you say you are, and you're not some shell company or some guy in some foreign country.
That's all NASTF has to do.
Yeah.
Did they want you to crumple up the paper first so they knew it was real? You didn't put the reference.
They make the statement that NASTF makes the statement when they're talking about whether you're in violation of LSID or whatever. You have to actually be the person that can touch or hug the customer.
Yeah.
Right.
I disagree with that, because we could use that same Amazon model. I didn't know it was the Amazon model. I said that would be my idea before we even heard the Amazon model.
Yeah.
To me, to put other people, other equipment, and say that there's only one company and one person in this industry that can be the final authority on key authorizations for a car, to me, that's a racket. That's almost criminal. And I don't mean
Some's
to
definitely
belabor
odd
that,
about it. Yeah.
but there's something wrong with that in the internet age when we could do just what Amazon does, which is say, yes, I'm the owner of the car. Okay, now here's why it's an issue for me, because remote companies, remote support companies such as Diagnostic or Opus Autologic, okay, or anybody that does this kind of work, they're at a complete utter disadvantage based on that one piece of that rule where you have to physically touch the customer. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is. You don't want me to say this either.
I wouldn't have
I'm
gone
going to
as
tell you
far
right
as
now,
you
that's
have.
violated every day right through the program.
Yeah.
And I've proven it.
Oh,
and if
many
somebody,
times.
If somebody wants to call me out on it, hit my email and I'll meet with them on it. I've got written proof that that's violated over and over and over. So what are we really doing here? Why couldn't we take this industry and go to the model like Amazon does and say, yeah, you're the valid owner of the car. That's all we need.
Maybe they didn't think of it.
Well, maybe not, but that's my problem is this is morphed into something that is restrictive to the customer, costly to the customer, and it's messing with people's businesses.
Yeah.
That's what I have a problem with.
Well, and I don't know. I think that
Other than that, it's great.
the concept.
The concept is great, and I agree with it and supported it for years until they went here, and that's when they lost me.
So I've got a friend that works for Audi, and we talk often about the fact that Audi wants their client's car fixed properly.
Sure.
And they really care about that because at the end of the day, that is their car.
Absolutely.
And so somebody gets killed in that car. That car
It's their
burns to the ground.
reputation period.
Right. It doesn't
liability.
matter. Right. Doesn't matter whose fault it is. Doesn't matter. You know, the other day in our Facebook group, somebody posted the picture of the Kia burning to the ground, and the dude had just done a fuel system service on it. And everybody's like, well, it's a Kia. It's obviously going to burn to the ground. Well, I mean, if it had been any other car and I'd just done a fuel system service on it, you know, obviously that would have been the shop's fault.
Right.
But because it's a Kia.
It's fine because it's a Kia. It's like
Anyway,
they burn
right?
to the ground. That's what they do.
But you know, in talking to my friend at Audi, one of his things was like, that information is expensive, and it's expensive to moderate. It's expensive to put that information where it needs to be. Yeah. Do you think that manufacturer certification, because you look at Audi, right? They have way more collision shops that are independent than they do that are Audi shops, right? Is it possible that we look to the manufacturers to provide manufacturer certification for independent shops? And at that point, because I mean, listen, you guys know the guys in the dealer too, and I'm not picking on dealer techs. I'm just saying there's bad apples in every shop.
Right.
And so if the guy in the dealer can't steal the information, I can't steal the information, right? Like, what difference does it make? If we're certified, if we're created equal by that,
Right.
why couldn't we just get that information?
Sure.
And I think his perspective is look, you're talking about a massive program. The collision program is huge, and it was almost required because somebody could die if they were in that accident. I'm like, well, what about ADAS systems? Right.
Fuel services.
There is a good amount of liability behind ADAS if you think about it. And a lot of people don't talk about it or won't talk about it, but think about this. ADAS really, for the first time, puts that technician directly in the liability path.
Boys.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Because here's the problem. Most shops, some shops are very, very serious about it and good about it. Most shops don't document well on not just the service advisor end, but on the technician end, meaning replace side mirror. Okay, so I replaced the side mirror, but guess what? That required a calibration for ADAS. So now the car has an accident.
Yeah.
The customer says, I didn't do that. The car went across the center line all by itself. What's the lawyer going to look at first?
Absolutely.
He's
And for
going to look at
years,
the last servicing dealer of that car, and he's going to tear that tech apart.
and clients have been saying that for years.
Right.
Clients have already been saying that.
Right.
Now there's a way that the car can do it.
Right.
And so everybody can say, and you know, look, I was talking to somebody about the Mosaic a while back, right? And talking about the fact that the Mosaic requires you to enter all of your information and you have to certify each step. I did this. I had to deal with a technician a while back. And it said on his work order, It required him to click a box that said, I torqued the wheels. Guess what he didn't do?
He didn't torque the
He
wheels.
didn't torque the wheels. He didn't put the damn lug nuts on it.
Oh, that's a problem.
Right.
That's
oh,
a
yeah.
bad day, isn't it?
We all found out about it really quick, but he certified that he did it. Just because you certify that you do it doesn't necessarily mean that you've done it, right?
Right.
And so I think the Mosaic's a great idea, and it says that it makes you certify you've done the job and you've promised. At the end of the day, you're still on the hook for that bad boy.
You didn't, right?
And,
that's a real problem. I try to talk to shops and say, listen, if we're going to help you with this, you need to document this, right? The procedure needs to be documented for the technician to say, I did the alignment. Look at just a simple front end alignment.
Yeah.
I mean, anecdotally, and I don't recall the exact number, but anecdotally, I remember a guy that was, I don't recall what company, but I think it might have been Hella or somebody that does these ADAS systems. That was doing a keynote address. And he said, what you guys don't realize is when you change the alignment angle on the car, a 1 degree change at the grill of the car is a 150 degree change across the center line of the car. And so, that's a serious thing, because how many tire shops around the country are doing alignments and circumventing that relearn process. Okay. Yeah. And how many dealers
you've done it now?
How many dealers are doing it?
Dude, I'm telling you, we've just had this conversation 3 times.
And it's a real issue.
We were having a conversation a while back where we're talking to them and we're saying, hey, it's great that you want this freaking car calibrated. I don't give a fuck. If your dealer is telling my client that they'll align the car for $79 and I'm a crook for trying to get you to calibrate the car,
there's a problem.
That's a problem.
Right. And there's been manufacturer dealer techs, not just techs, but manufacturer dealers are suggesting that to take the car and put a target up on a fence and push the car back and forth and hit calibrate until the car calibrates. I mean, come on now.
It's a big industry problem, because it just opens everybody up to a liability that wasn't there before. And lawyers work on paperwork. So as soon as you say the car crossed the center line, I didn't, and they ask for the last servicing dealer, oh, look at this, we replaced a front bumper on the car. They are smart enough in the law industry to go back and read the service procedure on the car. Says, note in big red letters, this must be calibrated after this bumper is replaced, or this grill, or this windshield. Now, if that technician didn't take the time, even if he did the calibration, if he didn't take the time to document on that ticket, replace bumper, recalibrated front radar, camera, and sensors, you just bought yourself a big liability if that car has a crash.
Do you know what a jack screw is in an aircraft? Mm-hmm. Okay, so
MD-80 comes to mind.
Yeah, boys, over the Pacific, Alaska Airlines.
Coming out of Mexico, if I recall, all those years ago.
Yep, and so, think about the absolute terror that all those people faced because of that, right? And then you think about the fact that was tracked all the way back down to a technician who greased one grease joint and not another. Holy shit.
Oh, that's a big bad day.
One grease joint made the difference of 300 people living or dying, and like a torturous way to die, right? Like that had to be.
It nosedived in.
Right. Well, it inverted and then turned over and went straight down, right? And pancaked against the ocean to the point that it was flat before they found it, right? That's crazy. And it was one grease joint. And they were able to track it all the way back exactly to the day, exactly to the time, the amount of grease in the grease gun, right?
So now they'll be able to do that in automotive, because you have your scan logs that they can go back to. Okay?
Exactly.
And so that can be proven right back to the store that last worked on the car, even if it was 3 repairs ago. Think about Carfax and all these different data tracking systems. You're not going to escape that.
It's only a matter of time. And everybody says, but it's not happened yet.
Right.
Now, Chris Chesney said, I feel pretty confident that it has happened and we're just not hearing about it. Like he said before, I think there's data out there of a couple of cases that just hasn't made it all the way through the system yet.
Right.
And he's probably right about that.
Yeah.
Sure.
But either way, it's coming. Sooner or later, somebody's going to make a boo-boo and they're going to pay for it, right? Because we're in a litigious society.
Yes, we
are. They'll come at you for anything.
Right.
I don't know if y'all saw this. There was an ad on Facebook, a Facebook video the other day. And it's this ad and it says, auto mechanic, ? It says auto mechanics are a higher risk of lung cancer than any other. And I was talking to a shop and he said, I got sued He said, the guy didn't even have lung cancer yet. He said, but I was sued because he was at a higher risk for lung cancer. And he said, my insurance company had to pay him.
Oh, man.
Holy crap. What in the world? Like, did you need a new lawyer? What's up with that?
You got to call the insurance company tomorrow.
I know, right? So, I mean.
All right.
You good?
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the Changing the Industry podcast. If you enjoyed the show, do us a favor and leave us a review on your favorite podcast player. And don't forget to set it to automatically download the latest episode. Our efforts with this podcast, the YouTube channel, and the Facebook group wouldn't be possible without the support of our awesome sponsors. So please take a moment, check them out by clicking on the links in the show notes.